So let's start YouTube or Netflix system design. So before starting, as usual, we'll check the functional requirements. What are these functional requirements? The first requirement is uploading videos. Basically, these are the people who are uploading the videos, like you and me, who are uploading the videos. Also in the Netflix, large production houses who are uploading the videos. So for this video purpose, for this architecture purpose, everyone, I'll make a convention that everyone will be called as production houses when it comes to uploading video. So you and are also production houses. Then comes something called as user homepage plus search. So when user logs in, right, they should see the home screen with the content, right? That's the requirement. And the second requirement is whenever searching any videos, that also or whenever they are searching any movies, that also should have a low latency and it should search quickly. So there are two cases when it comes to user homepage and search screen. Like one is the recommended movies which is shown already, and one is like when you are searching exactly which movie you want. Third requirement is play the video. So when user is clicking on start or play the video, it should start quickly. That's the main criteria over here. And then we have something called as support all devices. So devices, there are different types of devices, right? Like Android phones, iPhones, smart TV, then smart watches, etc. So our basically our functionality support the devices, and it should also support different video formats. So when I say video formats, that means it can be uh, formats like JSON format, MP4 format, or any format which is required. See, XML form, if MKV format, AVI format. So different types of formats are required according to the devices, so it should be supported. Now, let's get into non-functional requirement, and then I'll let you know what extra I want to talk on support all devices. So let's see what is non-functional requirement. Here, first thing is no buffering. When I say no buffering, that means video should be available when device wants to play. There should be I mean, it should have a low latency. It should not be like it will take a lot of time to to start the video. Sometimes it happens, right? So that should not happen. It should have a high availability. Then good session experience. When I talk on good session experience, that means there should be no lag when you're watching. There should be no. Sometimes you see that lag when you're watching a movie, so it should not happen. And a good recommendation system. Why? Because when there is a good recommendation system, user experience is best, and that's how the latency is low, and that's how the rating of the videos goes ahead. Next thing is platform should show good content to the right person. It should not happen like suppose I myself like action movies, then it should show only action movies to me and not emotional movies, something like that. So the recommendation should be the best channel so that we can rate the Netflix or we can rate the YouTube videos accordingly. Now, in this scenarios, right, in this functional requirement and non-functional requirement, the basic important part is support all devices. This is very important criteria. You might be checking this as a fourth point, but this is actually a very important point. Why is this important? Example, we have five devices, right? We have five devices, and five devices will have five formats because Android phone require different format, then iPhone require different format, smart watches require different format, smart TVs require different. Now five different devices, five different formats, then you have multiply by five dimensions, because dimensions will be different of each. Mobile is a rectangular dimension, iPad is somewhat like a square dimension, or watches are so small dimensions, the dimensions are different. Then according to this you will calculate the bandwidth, right? Bandwidth will also be different, right? So there are many combinations which are happening because there are different types of devices, and we need to support this video or the movies according to all the formats, because a user can open any device and start watching the video or movie. So if the platform is global, right, then user again have different bandwidth. Like some bandwidth will be slow, medium, fast, according to the geographical locations. So it can be as well as global. We have to consider this point that our videos should run everywhere. It can be global. Then there is something like, if you know, there are something called as, every video is chunked into different small chunks like frames per second, audio bitrate. These are the terms which I will be explaining going ahead, but because of which increasing, decreasing, reducing the file size, bandwidth, this is plays an important role when you consider this point supporting all devices. So we must create different versions and different formats and different resolutions and bitrates to to support the functionality of Netflix and YouTube. And we will be watching ahead like how can we go ahead and do that. Now let's see a next scenario which is related to clients playing videos, right? So basically, it's a Netflix or a YouTube scenario where clients are playing the videos. When I say clients, those are laptop, smartwatches, or phones, or any device. So when clients can be any of this, and they are now asking to play the video, that means they do not download any full video, right? Like when you're playing any movie, you do not download the movie, you do not download any video. Instead, what client does, they request the chunks. These are the chunks. Suppose these are the chunks. They request the chunk and play it. While it's playing, they request next chunks. So when you're watching a half movie, you are requesting the next few chunks of further movie. So that is what is happening currently. Now client has this logic. These clients have the logic like to understand what device I am on, what formats I need. Basically they know what formats they need, what device they are on, and on basis of that they'll request these chunks of the videos. Client chooses the qualities based on the network. So whatever the network is there, client will choose the quality based on that particular network. Suppose if the chunk is very slow, right? If the chunk, they are whatever they are getting, the chunks are very slow, then they will request 480p, right? But if a phone is there and it's getting a very fast chunk, then it can request 1080p, right? So basically the request of the chunks depends upon how slow and fast the network is. So if chunks are slow, they are requesting 480p, and if network improves, then again back it will change the speed to 1080p. So that is called something as adaptive bitrate streaming. That is adaptive bitrate streaming. This is a very important term because the switching of the speed, or you can say the switching of the chunks, the way the chunks is coming, it depends upon the network slow and fast network. And these ABS, that is adaptive bitrate streaming, are the libraries which are available to build such functionality. So client's main job is to know which file type the request has to go to the cloud to get the chunks, and to decide how to play the video, whether to play the video in 480p, whether to play the video in 1080p. So that's the two main job. What are the main jobs of the client? The formats, which formats they want the video to be played, or what type of file they request. And next is ABS. When I say ABS, that is adaptive bitrate streaming. So for this, they can do it according to their network. So if the network is slow, it is 480p. Network is fast, it is 1080p. Now let's see what happens when when we'll see the architecture of UI for production houses. So this is a small diagram which I have drawn for uploading the flow from production houses. When I talk production houses, that means you and me, the suppliers who is uploading the movies on Netflix. We are uploading some videos on YouTube. So that is the flow which I want to explain. Like how is that happening right now? So this is something production houses, and these are Amazon S3 asset onboarding services, content processors. We have events all going into Kafka, notification services, search consumers. So let's see how all these interact together. Now, first thing is when upload starts, right? This UI for production houses have their files or have their content somewhere in their S3 buckets. They have their content somewhere in their S3 bucket. So now when they are uploading these videos or the movies via load balancer. So when I say load balancer, think that here there is a API gateway, authentication services, security services, all these are over here. So via this load balancer, they are uploading. So for small videos, upload can be immediate. But for large files, like raw large files, 20 GB, 40 GB, upload button is not practical. So what happens is they they have the S3 URL, right? The production houses have the S3 URL. So they share this SFTP with username and password, and this is pooled together by asset onboarding service. That is pooled asset onboarding services. They'll get the link of S3, will pull the data, it will download the content, and then it stores in Amazon S3 bucket. Okay. Now this video metadata, whichever is downloaded by on asset onboarding service, is then stored, all the metadata along with the user ID, along with the S3 information, tags, thumbnails, etc. is stored into Cassandra. Is then stored into Cassandra. That is what is happening when it is onboarded. So this is the scenario. All the events, like when this uploading is happening, all these events are given to Kafka as well. Like we have downloaded the service, it is gone into S3, so that all events are captured in the Kafka for further analysis. Now what happens? The uploading process is not completed. Now let's see the next scenario. What happens when there is a content processor? So still we are uploading. It's just not S3, right? We have that pipeline and we are going to see the pipeline. Sometimes you see when you are uploading a video, it takes a processing time for some period of time. So all these things are happening that processing period of time. So after a Kafka event is sent to the after an event is sent to the Kafka, the content processor consumes that particular event. Now, when the content processor consumes the event, it takes the file, it chunks the file. So what it happens, it splits the file into smaller pieces with subsegments and different size types. Then it cuts more, it filters, the content is then filtered basics on basis of the chunks, like um, filters based on the piracy, nudity, or legal issues. Then what happens? It further, those chunks are further, then, from that chunks, they extract the tags. Tags like these are football videos, these are the cosmetic videos. So these tags are then extracted from those chunks. And then they also extract the thumbnails. So here tags or thumbnails are extracted, right? And then what happens? They transcode the form. That means convert the raw videos into AVI, MK4, MP4, MKV, all these formats. And then for quality purpose, again, each format has different bandwidth and resolution. So they do a quality checks on that. And then they upload this on the CDN. Basically, they upload on various CDN. I have just shown a main CDN over here. There are various CDNs. CDN is content delivery network. So if you are on different geographical regions, you have different CDNs. So then different CDNs, these files, these chunks are uploaded, not the complete file, the chunks. So this complete process is happening. This is a content processor pipeline is happening when a user is uploading, when you and me or production house is uploading any video. So now this event is also sent to the Kafka. This event also sent to the Kafka that we have for downstreaming processing, that we have done the chunking, we have extracted all the tags, we know the filtration, we have converted raw file into different formats, done the quality check and pushed to the CDNs. Now what happens is this event is then consumed by Spark streaming jobs. What Spark streaming jobs does is it groups the by ID, count the tags, pick pick 10 tags so that those tags can be shown to the user. You know what happens, it groups, there are a lot of thousands of tags which content processor took out. You know, there may be thousands of thumbnails, so out of which are the top most 10 top most tags, it just aggregates everything in the Spark streaming. Why it is doing so, tomorrow any user is coming to search the videos, it will show those top 10 tags, right? And those videos can be shown, so basically for analysis purpose. So that is done by the Spark streaming jobs. And again, those top 10 tags, top 10 thumbnails, all these grouping by the movie ID, all this is then pushed back again to the Kafka event. Now what happens is video, this is the process which is happening. Videos are uploaded, right? This is what is happening from S3 production houses. If there are large files, they give this S3 URL for asset onboarding, via which it goes into Amazon S3. Kafka takes the event, and from Kafka it goes into content processor. It does all this pipeline and then uploads on CDN, and then this event is sent back to Kafka, which is then taken by Sparkstream. Now, once this complete process is done, this is everything stored. This everything is stored. The metadata is stored in asset service back again. This is something like we store all the chunks, we store all this information which is happening, and thus we are also storing the data back again to the Cassandra. Okay, now this event is also sent to the Kafka, that we have stored everything properly with the top 10 tags and top 10 thumbnails and everything. And then the Kafka sends a notification. The Kafka, that event, this event that we have done everything is consumed by notification service. This basically notification to the production houses that upload is completed, and now search consumer can consume and open the video. So basically this is a flow of just uploading one video the on the Netflix or on YouTube. So first, just to give a overview, S3 from if there are large files, right? Then production houses takes the S3 URL and pushes it to asset onboarding. Once it is pushed to asset onboarding, it also stores in Amazon S3. It downloads the content and store in S3 and also pushes the data in Cassandra. Same event is consumed by Kafka, which is then consumed by content processor, which does all this process: file chunker, content filter, tagger, transcoder, quality, and CDN uploader. So at the end, it uploads to the CDN. This event is also sent back to the Kafka, which is then giving, this is event is given to Spark streaming jobs to do the calculation of aggregation, which is then saved into asset service and back to Cassandra, and this event is back sent to Kafka, and thus a notification is given to the production houses, you and me, that the complete process is done and a user can open the video which is done by the search consumer. We'll see that in next chapter. Now let's see the user login flow, wherein when the user logs in, what things are happening. So when the user is logged in, they can log with different devices. Maybe it is mobile, smart TV, smart watches. They can log in with different devices. So request comes via the load balancer. Request is coming via the balancer. Once the request comes in, this request is given user service that this sees some videos. Now this user service, what will it stores basically SQL and in Redis, what it stores, it stores the user ID, subscriptions, account information. So all the details are present in the MySQL. So this user service first queries the Redis. If the details are available, it get the details of that user ID. If the details are not available, then via MySQL, the MySQL will push all the details in Redis if it is a new, and then give it back to the user service. So basically, when it talks in load balancer, user service is asking you the user ID, whether it is subscribed or not. All these things are happening. Even how many devices the same account is working on. Then that device fingerprinting and geo tagging, all that things we come to know from SQL database, and this is sent to Kafka as an event. So the user ID and all this analysis which is done is given to Kafka as an event, which is then consumed by the analytics, and then then it is shown to the homepage screen. This is what happens. So what is homepage flow? After a user logs in, user sees the home screen. How that is happening, how this is immediately happening, it is via, it goes to user service, it takes out all user ID, subscription details, all the payloads and all information of the user, give it to Kafka, which is then consumed by the analytics does this analysis of the processing, and then home service returns the data immediately once it is logged in. So that is one of the scenario, like what user login. So this is a user facing platform. That is what I am explaining. Next is the search flow. So this is a flow when user logs in. What happens when a user searches some video? So now what happens? A user is searching a video, right? Then what happens? At that time, when user searches, the search service is called. This service is being called, right? When this service is called, search service may call user service. So this users search service may call this service to take the information of that particular user, because to understand, are there any age restrictions, are there any limits for this particular profile, etc. And at the same time it calls analytics, so like what user clicks on, all analytics is the data is basically based on what user is asking for. So that data is then stored again in the analytics, like how far user is scrolling, is there a pagination, then did the user went on page 2, page 3. All these things are happening when users search some name. Suppose I'm searching Mission Impossible, then that movie is on the second page, so I go to the pagination second page second. So that is also stored and captured in, right? So now this is the search item will show the search on page screen. Now what happens is user will click play video, right? What next happen? What is the next scenario? User device will say, okay, click on that button, I'll start the video. Once I start the video, it requests the load balancer, right? It requests host identity service through a load balancer. So it is requesting host identity service through a load balancer. When I'm saying through load balancer, it consists of API tokenization and authentication techniques. Okay. So it requests host identity service, like which CDNs have this video, which is the best CDN. So you spoken on the CDN that after content processing, the videos are uploaded to different CDNs, right? So now the host identity service has to see the chunks are available in which CDN, whether it is a main CDN, whether it is an optimized local CDN, right? Because user want to play the video, right? It has clicked on play button. So now host identity service is asking the asset service, please give me the details on which CDN this user is on. Now asset service will first ask to Cassandra the details are available or not. And also at the same time, if there is any fuzzy search happening, Elasticsearch will take care of that, as you know. So we get the details. So now what happens? We get the details from Cassandra that this is coming from local CDN like United States CDN. Now that CDN is given to host identity service that this is a local CDN, and then we are showing that no, then these things are given to streaming stats logger, like this is the host and here the user should watch the movie and the movie starts playing. Now the stream stats logger will log how much the user watched this movie, right? How user is watching this movie. If he's watching just for 5 minutes, that means it is a very it's not so good movie. He's watching for more than 2 hours, it's a good movie. So again this logger this event back to the Kafka for the analytics purpose and for the recommendation purpose. So you know what? I explained you the entire scenario, but I didn't explain you the concept of main CDN and CDN. So here are one example. If a user is of India, right, and the video chunks are in United States, then in this case there will be a lot of high latency, right? Because you get the network issues will be there. So for that we usually system design is like we have this optimized local CDN so that we put the cache, we put this chunks, not chunks, into the local CDN, and those chunks are then written back to the user playing video so that it can have low latency. So our one problem of getting the video in faster way, we resolved it. So low latency we have finally resolved in our architecture. So this is something is happening like when the user logs in page and when the user clicks on the button of play video. Now let's see the last part of this Netflix and YouTube system design. So what happens when, right, when we are doing an ingestion? Here I mentioned when we are doing ingestion of new S3, any upload, right? It is getting into asset onboarding service, and at the same time it is storing, it is storing in Cassandra. It is downloaded file is then given into S3, as well as that event is sent into the Kafka. So this is what I have drawn over here. You can see we have an asset service, we have a Kafka. So we are just going to talk on that entire flow in general, what happens. So when there is a search ingestion, like user is doing any search of, when a user is searching, okay, I want Mission Impossible, then at that time what happens is asset service produces that event, already produced that event during an onboarding session, and it has sent to the Kafka. What it has sent to the Kafka? The thumbnails and the tags and everything is there. Now this is whatever we are saying, thumbnails and tags, all is given to the search consumer. From search consumer is uploaded into Cassandra, plus it is uploaded into the Elasticsearch. Now, why Elasticsearch? Because Elasticsearch enables the fuzzy search, and also we can add a system design in the interview. You can ask to the interviewer that if there is a type ahead suggestion, like in Google, before even you search, you get the recommendation. So that also you can auto complete type ahead search. We can add it, or else we can add the ranking and relevance of the search, all these things can be done by the Elasticsearch and is then given to search service. So basically this search service, right? This search service and this search consumer service, same Elasticsearch database, so they know which formats the files are and what the file type is. So they understand the fields and the column names of Elasticsearch. So example, when you are searching Titanic or Mission Impossible, they know which category it is, and thus that is given back to the user in a low latency way. And it also checks, suppose in this case there are some checks like age limits, or some rules are applied, then definitely they have to call the user service to get all that information at the same time. Now, next part in this system design is, you must have seen we are using Cassandra here. In the earlier user login flow, we also use the Cassandra over here. In Before that, when you are onboarding, we are using Cassandra. So why are we heavily using this Cassandra? So Cassandra basically have a criteria which is a good and a bad. So let's talk on good first. Cassandra handle massive reads and massive writes. No single master. It works on the nodes. So add more nodes, it gets scaled up. So good thing is, it works on something like, give me the all chunks of this movie ID. Give me all metadata of this movie ID. Give me a user who recommended this particular movie. Give me a user ID for this particular movie. So all these get calls are very easy on Cassandra, and it can scale up according to the node wise. What is the weakness? Like, you cannot do a like search with Cassandra. You cannot do heavy aggregation with Cassandra. So for like search, we have the Elasticsearch. We can use Elasticsearch. For aggregation, we are using Spark streaming clusters and Hadoop for that particular purpose. And that's just wanted to mention why are we using Cassandra in heavily. Now the next point is, you must have seen when we are uploading the video, right? We mentioned that we are using thumbnails, we are content tagging it, we are having generating lot of thumbnails. So what we are doing is thumbnails and tagger is, we are pushing it to the Kafka. Via Kafka, we are pushing it to the Spark streaming jobs. Via Spark streaming jobs, it is given to Hadoop, where all aggregations of these thumbnails are done, and then ML model is run on this tags and the thumbnails, which is then giving you the recommendations. That is done with the help of Apache Spark cluster. So this thumbnails can be used for A to B testing and thus improve the home page. It is also uploaded on Cassandra, thus improves the home page screen of the user. That is the best thing which is happening of the tagging and thumbnails, because you get in the Hadoop, you can top 10, count 10 tags, count 10 thumbnails or images which you have, and that recommendation will run on that, and basically it will show what the user like. Suppose I just like action movies, right? And I am searching action movies, but you know homepage service is not showing me proper action movies, it is showing me some emotional movies, right? Then there is definitely an issue between the homepage service plus between the analysis which is done, that is in the recommendation and aggregation which is done in the Hadoop. So that way we can find out. But this process of getting aggregating and getting what user likes is something which is called recommendation, and is done by Apache Spark cluster. There is one more field, something called as collaborative filtering. Let me give you that example. So suppose user 1 likes an action movies, and user 2 likes something, also likes action movies, and user 3 uh, has watched one time the action, not couple of times. So in this case, we the recommendation service or Apache Spark cluster service can think that if user 1 and 2 is liking action movies, and user 3 has watched once the action movie, then definitely we can recommend Mission Impossible to user 3 as well. So this kind of an example or this kind of thing is called as ALS or alternate least square. This can also be applied in system design for talking to the interviewer. Next, we didn't spoke more on something called as traffic predictor. So that is also a very important part. So what is traffic predictor? So if you remember, we are copying the content of this asset service into main CDN. Then then we are distributing local CDN. So this is a main CDN. That's a typo mistake. This is a main CDN, and then we are pushing it to local CDN 1, CDN 2, right? You remember it. So this traffic predictor runs using this Hadoop and Spark. Example, if new series are launching in Germany, mostly all Germany will watch it, right? So we do not have to push into the CDN of United States or CDN of India, because India people will not watch it. So we need to make sure the content is pushed basically to that particular CDN where user watches more. And that is something done by the Kafka, which is done by the Hadoop through traffic predictor. And this is a very important because this way we'll reduce the work, will reduce the S3 pressure, and we can just send the proper files to the proper user in a low latency. And for this, we are using CDN writer, which will fetch the videos from appropriate CDN. Now let's see some other concept like a chunking concept. Now, as I mentioned, let's take an example of updating the chunk, okay, or how to update the chunk. This is an update, okay. Now what happens if we have LC1, okay? So LC1 is a local CDN, and it has chunks from C1 till C6. That means it has C1, C2, C3, C4, C5, C6. Now LC1 currently, so the thing is LC1 in actual, you see the data analysis, it should get these chunks. But currently LC1 is having chunks like C1, is having C2, is having C3, and then it is having something called C10 and C11. But according to analysis, according to analytic services, which were here, according to the analysis, this CDN should have, this local CDN should have C1 to C6. But right now we are having these many chunks. So in this case, what should be the approach? So what usually happens is when you update this local CDN, it will remove C10 and C11, and it will add C4, C5, C6, right? We'll do that. We'll do this way. But this is a very, I'm not saying it's a bad approach, but it's not a good approach. You are just removing the data and you are then updating. This might cause some bottleneck issues on S3 because um, this delete and update, S3 is sending the chunks, S3 is uploading the videos, and that cause a different bottlenecks in our system design. So to avoid that, we are using something called as torrent distribution, torrent like distribution. So what is this torrent distribution? Let's see. So we have right now LC1 gets C1 to C5, right? So what we do is LC1 will, when S3 bucket is, you know, uploading the video on content processor, and then the content processor is uploading the chunks to LC1, LC2, LC3, right? It don't have to upload all C1 to C25 chunks everywhere. It doesn't have to upload. It will upload C1 to C5 in LC1, C6 to C10 in LC2, and LC3 will get something C10 to C15, and LC4 will get something C15 C25. So now when there are any updates, you can just go on to that and update it. You do not have to change everything. And then let these local CDNs talk to each other to get the updates and removal, and to distribute the videos and to distribute the chunks among. So you do not have to worry about the S3 at all. That is something which helps in reducing the cost, because S3 always you are calling, you're always updating, deleting the records with the help of S3 will cost you more, and that's one of the optimization which we can check it. Now, last thing which I would like to let you know, that what happens, like I'll just show you a small picture to get you the details. So see, suppose this is our device, this is our laptop. Okay, then we have a modem. So how the network is getting connected? This is a modem, this is a router, right? Now this is a ISP router. Sorry for this wrong bad handwriting. This is an ISP router, and there are some steps, and then your YouTube channel is also there, right? And here you have the CDNs, local CDN, which are located, right? And here you have S3 buckets. So this is something know it. So this is just a short diagram to show you. So what happens, like when many users are requesting, so these are the users, suppose. Now many users are requesting the ISP, are requesting ISP, show me the same video. And there are a couple of users which are located in different bandwidth. So ISP and CDN is now going to waste it, because CDN has to 100 times give the ISP a disk hardware, and where it will upload the videos, and the same video will be shown to the user. But this will cost ISP, right? So what Netflix has done is, Netflix or YouTube, what Netflix especially has done is, Netflix has given its own Open Connect application hardware. So Netflix has given its own hardware to ISP, and it is free of cost. So it's maintaining all the chunks here, rather than calling your CDN, rather than calling the S3 and all that things. It just saves all the most likely those which the user want to pay for. It saves into that hardware, and this will be shown to those all 5 to 6 users, whichever is required. So actually this is kind of a very low latency, high availability, and we require less bandwidth because Netflix is giving us the free, and ISP gets a free caching hardware benefit as well. This is called as something Open Connect appliance, and I just wanted to mention that. It's not very important, but just a point to be considered for. So this is a device connected to modem, router, and ISP, and this is the way it is going on. Thank you for watching.